So, welcome everyone to another episode of the Healthy Reset, where we're live on YouTube every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. For those in the US, that's 6 p.m. Eastern Time with your daylight saving changes. Um, this channel is dedicated to helping women overcome the overwhelm of menopause and its symptoms. Are you ready to take control of your health and start feeling like yourself again? Join myself, Dr. Z, who I am a public health doctor who specializes in reducing burnout and weight loss, and my co-host, Nurse Maria, who is highly experienced in women's sexual health and reproductive health. Together, we bring 15 years of expertise in the medical field to support you on your journey to feeling more balanced, energized, and in control while going through the menopause change. Millions of women have already transformed their lives by taking the first step. Could this be your turning point? If you're tired of feeling stuck and want actionable tips and real answers, you're in the right place. Don't wait. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Go do it now so you'll never miss another live session. So are you ready for the ultimate reset? Let's dive in and discover tools that will empower you to feel your best. What's one thing you think you'd love to learn about managing menopause symptoms today? Let's talk about it. Leave a comment or or if you're live in the Zoom session, raise your hand and we will try to answer them. Now, today, I have a little bit of a celebration before we dive into today's session, this is our 1 year anniversary since starting this journey of the White Rose community and our channel, The Healthy Reset. So, that being said, I have with me today a wonderful guest speaker, and I will dive into her as soon as I pin her to the screen. Right. Awesome. So with us, we have the wonderful Rachel Hudson. And she starts off by quoting, "Everyone needs a Rachel in their pocket." That is an awesome quote. My wife won't agree. So let's not go there. A genuine quote from one of our clients. Rachel is a master at mindset and empowerment coaching, celebrated as a secret weapon for leaders navigating life's transition. With a dynamic background in business and creative arts, paired with expertise in NLP, and we want her to explain what that is because even I am a little confused, and hypnotherapy, transformational breathing, and body work. She delivers holistic, transformative coaching. Rachel is here to share her wisdom and passion for empowering women to embrace change, overcome obstacles, and reclaim the joy they've worked so hard for. She creates thriving spaces for authentic growth and lasting transformation, inspiring women to awaken their full potential. So we can see how Rachel aligns with our community so well because you're all these women going through this transformation at this point. So Rachel, welcome to the Healthy Reset.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here. I feel really privileged. It's Thanksgiving week, isn't it? It's for some people. So I feel really privileged that I'm here for your 1 year anniversary. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we feel privileged to have you. And I think I kind of dropped that one on Maria. She wasn't expecting me to say that it's our 1 year anniversary. So big celebration. There's no bells and whistles. In fact, I don't even know what day in November we started. It was so much happening at a time that I don't know. I just know it's in November. So Maria might be able to tell us what day that is if she can remember what day it was. Maria is muted.
I can't remember.
So we're all in the same boat. So, Rachel, let's dive into tonight's session. Welcome everybody who's here. If you're here on the live session on YouTube or you're watching a replay, Leave a comment anyway. We will try to get to them. If not, you can find us on Facebook. If you go on the YouTube channel, you'll see our website and everything. So you can find us all there. And of course, I will mention this now, but I will also mention at the end how you can link with Rachel on the YouTube channel also. All right. So Rachel, tell us a little bit about yourself. I would start off by share with us a health tip that you would recommend that most people might disagree with.
Oh, that's an interesting question. So a health tip that most people would disagree with. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm not often stumped. I'm gonna say breathing. You know, literally breathing. It's if you are not breathing, then there is no hope. Literally, if you are not breathing, for as long as you are breathing, there is within you the most amazing powerhouse of resources for you. And I don't just mean on a biological level, I mean on an emotional level and on a psychological level. If you can harness your breathing, and I don't mean just, you know, if you actually purposefully, meaningfully harness your breathing, then you have the biggest state changer, the biggest mood regulator available to you. Not to mention the fact that it can truly enliven your body and your experience. So your breathing pattern is as unique to you as your fingerprint. And if you can identify where your breathing is locked, where your torso, where your body is holding the breath, where it's not holding the breath, and begin to let go in those moments of tension and literally use it. It's the first place to go to change your state in any given moment.
That is a very interesting take on breathing. I never heard that one before. I've heard lots of them, but I totally agree with you. And you're right. Physiologically, you can change a lot in your body by just taking one deep breath. And when you hit 3, your heart rate starts to go down. Your brain slows down, so it has a real impact on how you feel. So yes, I totally agree. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and you mentioned a whole bunch of stuff like NLP and hypnotherapy. Go into a little bit more on that so we can give our audience an idea of what you do and what those things are.
Thank you. So it's not like I do hypnotherapy individually anymore or NLP. You know, I don't compartmentalize them. I kind of bring every one of the tools that I have with me to any session I work with. NLP is basically it's the concept of it's neuro-linguistic programming. So it's the concept that you can change your mind or you can change your outcome depending upon what you put in your mind. So if you can change the information that you're putting into your mind, the interpretation or the meaning you're making of that information, then that will change your state. If you change your breathing, you change your posture. If you change your posture, you change your, oh my gosh, I'm on the spot here. So I'm thinking of this. If you change your breath, you change your posture. If you change your posture, you change your state. If you change your state, you change your outcome. If you're hunched all over, for instance, then that's going to bring with it thoughts that feed that posture. You know, quite often, very few very happy, resilient, or people who, when they're in a flow state or a resilient state, are thinking low vibrational thoughts, unhelpful attacking thoughts. You know, you will rarely find somebody using attacking thoughts with an upfront resilient posture. People who are having self-attacking thoughts will probably have a more curved approach to the world, the shape that they cut, if that makes sense. So NLP is basically changing what we're putting in the brain and making different meaning of our experiences so that we can have a different output. Does that make sense?
It does. It absolutely makes sense to me. I want to give an example of that. Because as I mentioned, I do public health, but I also do sports medicine. And one of the things we encounter with athletes or with people who have injuries is that a lot of times they would have recovered from the injury and they're not supposed to be having pain, but they're still having pain. And and when we have to work on their whole mental ability, their psychological power to change that belief. in order to reduce their pain. So we are seeing, like, we do the full treatments and we see it's back to normal. Everything we're seeing is good. And then suddenly this person is still saying, I'm getting this pain. So yeah, we know that 50% of your pain can come from your brain. So
Right.
yes, it makes sense that NLP would have that impact.
Exactly.
So yeah, so go a little deeper. What do you do? What do you do with everybody? How does your coaching work? And give us a little insight into your what you do.
Okay, so I think I'm I'm a mindset and an empowerment coach with a therapeutic bent. So I specialize in personal dynamic and professional effectiveness. So if somebody has something going on in their personal dynamic, their inner world, that's going to have an impact on their outer world. So my job when somebody comes to see me is to help them transform whatever stuck place they're in, whether their thinking behavior, their feeling behavior, their believing behavior. Because quite often when somebody's coming to me, I'm their last resort. Everyone needs a Rachel in their pocket was a comment from one of my clients, because they're like secret weapon. By the time they've come to me, quite often they've tried lots of things with little effect or transient effect. And then they come to me because they hear about me on the grapevine somewhere, and then they do their own hero's journey just to find me until recently. So I then work with them to identify what they're programming themselves with. So what language are they using that is feeding the place that they find themselves in, that they're not happy? What internal narrative are they working on? And how is that affecting the shape that they cut in the world? How's that affecting what they're manifesting and what they're magnetizing more of towards them? So, if an example would be, let me think of an example. Okay, so I have a lady that I've now been working with for a few years. Originally, she came to me because she was going through transitioning from a very toxic relationship. And she had found herself she kept hitting a glass ceiling at work. And we uncovered that she was carrying this very core belief, semi-conscious rather than totally subconscious, but this core belief that men were, that she came from a culture where men had very much more authority, and that she had to always be demure. And she was working in financial services, and she was unable to stand her ground with any kind of strength in order to be able to be seen and be heard. So we had to work around the cultural belief patterns that she had been operating with for 40 years at that stage, not to mention the fact that those had been further empowered by the devices and the strategies that her abusive husband had been using to keep her down. So I was working with her with hypnosis, with some inner child healing, with some regression work. So regression work isn't necessarily past life regression. It's about inner child regression, or actually any younger part is termed, if you go back to the younger you, that's termed as regression. So I did that whilst at the same time as we were beginning to clear up some of this meaning that she'd made of the world as a child or as a younger person. We began to clear that up, balance it out with additional information so that she was able to recalibrate those experiences in a way that just became an aspect of herself that used to behave in this particular way, that used to believe in. So she could free herself to begin to explore other ways rather than an almost subconscious or unconscious indoctrinated pattern of response behaviors. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I understand that, because one of the things they're doing in like I do with burnout and so on is some not as deep as in regression work that you do, but having people explore backwards things they have done in their past that might be contributing to the way they feel today, whether it's with their job that's leading to them getting burnt out, leading them checking out at work, and that exposure, that just sitting and thinking, oh, what could have happened in the past, Like, for instance, I only discovered very recently I had a block to learning foreign languages. And
Ah,
it came from my high school years when I grew up in Guyana, South America. And I had passed to, I know we use the same system as you do in the UK for education. I ended up passing to one of our, what do you call it, a junior sec school in Guyana. Not a top passes. I really wasn't interested in common entrance or any of those entrance examinations at the age of 10. I couldn't care less. So I passed the lowest school possible. And I was excelling in that school. And we were learning Spanish while I was in that school. I spent 2 terms there. And then my dad, he switched me to a prestige school to improve my education. In Ghana at the time, there was a lack of teachers. So one teacher would teach like basically 3 different forms, not even just one form, and multiple classes at the same time. So it was, the prestige schools had more teachers, so there was more availability of learning. But when he switched, they were doing French and they were doing 2 terms of French by the time I showed up. That led me to develop a mental block to foreign languages because I felt completely left out. Because the French teacher was also the maths teacher and the English teacher. And she had no time to work on any student by themselves. Right. So, and I developed a mental block there. And it's only until recently, just doing that same, going back into my past, it suddenly dawned on me
yeah.
why I can't learn Spanish. And interestingly, I went to study in the US in Miami, and many of my friends were Spanish speakers. I used to go hang out to their houses all day with their whole family, and everybody's speaking Spanish. I didn't pick up a word.
Oh my gosh,
Nothing.
so that
It
was really
was
meta
that,
block.
yeah. Yeah, and I look back on those days and I'm like, these guys were two of my friends were actually living with me. We were roommates together, and they'll be paddling away in Spanish. And even though I've spent 2 years living with them, not a word. So yeah, an extreme block. And as you said, I just realized why that's happening. And now I have my 2 little girls and I want them to learn Spanish. So I'm gonna try to learn with them and hopefully be able to break through that block. So I understand the whole going back and seeing what is causing those things. So that being said, I want to turn this into a menopause and midlife change discussion. This, since we're focusing on menopause and midlife change that women are going through today, that is being swept under the rug. Let's bring it out into the open. So, with your work and what you do, and all that you just said to us, how can women use what you do to help with the menopause change? And I'm going to say, I'm not saying that anybody doesn't know what a menopause change is, but a menopause change, just to make sure everybody is the same page, it's 3 different changes. It's not just one single change. It's physical, which is the loss of the hormones, the changing of the sexual health, going from a reproductive to a non-reproductive stage. That's the physical. It's physiological because those hormones are affecting your entire body in ways that can be adversely detrimental and lead to extreme symptoms. And then it's psychological, right? And there's a mental strain of those changes that occur. And we now know that with women, like when they go through pregnancy, they tell women don't do any examinations while you're pregnant, about 6 months after you give birth. Because of those hormone changes, it makes it harder to concentrate, and you might actually do worse in the exam and end up blaming yourself, which is not true. You are extremely intelligent. It's just your pregnancy caused your brain to change in a way that made that possible. So in medicine, we always tell women, yes, while you're pregnant, don't do any board exams because it's just not going to go well and it's just going to frustrate you. So it's better to leave it for a little while longer. And these same changes are occurring when you're going through the menopause change. So there's a mental, physical, and physiological aspect to this. And that in itself, even just seeing it is overwhelming, right? And I'm a guy, so I can't speak to this change. Most I can do is empathize, but that's why Maria is my guide on this section of it. I do something like what you do, where I try to reduce the burnout that comes with menopause and the weight gain that occurs and help you to get back on track. So tell us, how can you tie this in?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, because prior to 45, I'm about to turn 57. And prior to 45, I had heard of this mythical word called menopause, but I had no idea what it was. I'm from a family where there were 5 women, my mother included, 4 girls, and I'm the youngest girl. And just after I turned 45, I had a really nasty flu bug. And after that, I started having very irregular, but real heats coming through my body. And I was like, what on earth is that? And at first I thought it was a response to a viral kind of bacterium or a virus or something like that, because it just felt so strange. One minute I was perfectly okay. And then I literally felt like nuclear fusion had gone off at some point in my body. And it was like this wave, you know, like the nuclear wave going through my body. One minute I'm fine, the next minute I'm hot, and then the next minute I was drenched. I was like, what on earth is that? Didn't think anything of it. And at the same time, you know, it's not like your periods just stop. Nobody told me about this, right? Nobody told me about this. It's not like my periods just stopped. They kind of doubled down for a little while. And instead of being every 28 days for about 2 years, they'd been, you know, around the every 3 week mark. Still didn't think anything of it. And then I suddenly just started feeling, so I'm sharing my experience, if that's okay with you, right? Because it really informed me in a way that I'd had not a single jot of understanding of. So I began to feel like, so as I'd always been very bodily aware of what was going on for myself. And I kind of knew if 1 month it was coming from my left fallopian tube or 1 month it was not, if it was coming from my right, because 1 month I'd had pain, but no emotional response or sensitivity. And the other month, if it was coming from the other one, I'd have no pain, but a high emotional sensitivity and reactivity. You know, so I'd had that sort of awareness that my body was powerfully affected by my hormones. And I'd found myself on those months when I had the no pain but high emotionality. I'd recognized that really acute premenstrual sensitivity right the couple of days before I broke into my period. And when I started these hot flashes, I understood why they were called hot flashes when I realized what they were. I'd also begun to monitor my emotional health. I'm a confidence coach, right? I work in personal dynamic, mindset empowerment, professional effectiveness. I found myself on the precipice of the worst premenstrual tension for months, it felt, without a period. But I was so highly sensitized, hyperreactive, oversensitive. My brain and my focus had gone completely. I was having, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use this word, so forgive me, there might be a better word, but this is how I felt. I felt crippled in confidence, completely paralyzed in my confidence levels, like nothing I'd ever felt before. I'd never been the most secure internally secure of human beings, despite what I do for a living. And I'd never known an insecurity like it. And I went to the doctor, the GP. Finally, I said, what on earth is going on? Because this mythical state of menopause that I'd heard about was peddled. The myth was peddled that it would happen at aged 52 onwards. And actually, I was experiencing these things and I just didn't know what was going on. So someone mentioned to me, oh, I haven't told you about the sensitivity in the muscles when you begin to lose elasticity in the muscles, right? And I was beginning to ache when I'd never ached before and always been a physical and active human. You know, so all of these things were suddenly just piling into my system, and I was beginning to question my skill set, my appropriateness in doing what I do. And went to the GP, and apparently I listed every single symptom bar night sweats for menopause. And if it hadn't have been for her being switched on, I don't know that I would have got through that, because I felt like I was jumping off a cliff every single day, and I'm so thankful to that GP, and I'm so thankful to myself that I was on the edge of losing every one of my friends, because I didn't know who was going to show up at any event, whether it was going to be my reasonable self or my menopausal self, and she was very sympathetic. So if you are having any kind of symptom like that, listen to it, trust your body, trust your instinct, and go get some help if you can, to do whatever you can. So that experience really began to inform me, that sense of invisibility that I'd heard people speak about. I'd begun to feel, but I don't think it was necessarily because people weren't seeing me. It was because I'd stopped seeing myself. I think I was in resistance. I'd hit menopause much earlier than most. I realized that there are lots of people who hit menopause even earlier. So for me, I had to do a huge amount of identity work. I had to do a huge amount and willingly, I had to move into willingness, into who do I want to be? Do I want to be this person who plays a much smaller game? Do I stay fixed? Because, in spiritual ways, we talk of this is now the crone phase, right? It's the crone phase. And what does that, am I allowed to speak in terms, I know there's a medical fraternity here, but in this age, is now known as the crone, when you suddenly can't reproduce. What are you there for? And I was sat there, a single childless woman. What was my purpose? What was my point? I'd not met any of the benchmarks of most women of my age, and there I was hitting menopause, never going to have the baby that I wanted to have in my life. So the thing that was so important to me was trying to find balance in this new world. Instead of resisting what was happening to me, I had to flow with it. Despite the fact I'd lost my physical, biological flow, as it were, I needed to. And so how do I bring this into my work with my clients? A long lead in, I hope you don't mind.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you. The things I had to do so much identity work on myself, and I recognize that pattern with women of a certain age when they have reached a certain level where there's this expectation, certainly professionally, they've generally reached a level of success where it's not safe for them to show the vulnerability that often comes with the process of menopause. So the first thing I do is create a safe space. So anybody who's going through this, I would encourage you deeply to find a safe space of community and connection. Feels like this is one of those spaces with you. Find a friend or a group of women going through something so that it's a safe place for you all to express what's going on, and it feels like a sanctuary for you. So that was the first thing. The second thing I do with my clients is look at the narrative they're using. Quite often, because of this stage, we move into a fixed mindset. The fixed mindset is life is over, I've got no purpose, and I'm generalizing there, I realize. Not everyone will feel that. So I help my clients move into a growth mindset around their future, around, I said to you earlier, curiosity, learning something new, making your life is not over, and it's definitely not a downhill slope either. There is so much available to us. So I do a lot of reinvention work, identity work, growth mindset work with the individuals. I also, and my clients are amazing. I just love them, and I learn something from them every day as well. So the other thing that I encourage is we find ways to balance themselves in those moments of anxiety or confidence crises. So breath work is a lot on it. Instead of rejecting the body, and that state, I have them do more embodying practices so that they can actually have like a Buddha Zen-like state in a time where that irrationality and sensitivity can come. So lots of state management. And I task them deeply and intentionally on recognizing what they bring to the world, their accumulated wisdom, to acknowledge everything they bring with them, their level of communication skills, so that they don't make themselves obsolete with their mindset. So stress relief, sparking joy on purpose, these are kind of things that I work in encouraging with those clients. Long answer, my apologies.
No, that's an excellent answer because you unpacked so much in that answer. I mean, one of the things I want to backtrack on a little bit, and because I'm medical, I just latched onto that for a bit, is the shifting from one ovary to the next, and how you recognize that change. And since that's not my area of expertise, I'm going to ask Maria to come in and tell us if this is something that she's encountered before, if it's something that's new. Because for me, it's all brand new. I didn't even realize that could happen.
In terms of you feeling that you're ovulating as a woman, yes, you can feel it. I used to know, well, I know still because I still experience my monthlies at this age. And there are times I know which side I'm ovulating from, right? It feels more tender. Just to the touch, I would know, right? So it is nothing strange. So you really, because you don't ovulate with the same ovary every month, it alternates. 1 month is
Yeah.
right, next month, right? So you feel that, you actually do feel it. So I really agree with that. I really do.
What about a psychological impact, like what Rachel was saying, like one side which she would know when she would have pain on one side, and the other side is an emotional change.
The emotional change, no, but I used to get more of the physical change because I used to have extremely bad monthly cycles, painful cycles. So my own was more on the physical than the psychological and physical side. So I could relate to what she's saying. Actually, it's true.
Thank you.
Awesome.
It's very true. Yeah.
So I wanna do something different for this evening. And Rachel, I'm gonna ask you at the end of this, give us a little crash course on one of your breathing exercises. I think this is something our community could definitely use. Just 1 minute deep dive in how to use breathing. But let's come down to the end of that. But for now, what I want to do, because we have Rachel in our pockets today, that is a gem. So I'm going to ask all the ladies who are on this call right now, do you have a question? Do you have something you want to ask Rachel? Something that's been bothering you, whether about, that change that occurs that holding yourself back. Anything you want to come out and say? I'm going to open the floor, including you, Maria. Toss out some questions or think of something. Let's get Rachel's expertise going here. Rachel, I hate to put you on the spot, but
Spontaneity is one of the things I encourage, and agility. So, let's try it.
So ladies, just unmute yourself and ask a question if you have one, or, leave a comment. I mean, a comment is just as good as a question. We can expand on that. We tend to have sometimes a little quiet group here, but we have some talkers in our group. Cynthia.
Yes. Sometimes, at this age, you're really not feeling to have sex at all. What is the cause of that?
Are you asking myself, Dr. Z, or Maria, Cynthia?
You.
I'm gonna leave that to Maria and Rachel to talk about that area, because one talks about mindset, the other one talks about women's sexual health, and I'm gonna step back and just listen to the answers.
Cynthia, so I'm not sure I quite heard all of the question, but I think it's about sexual libido. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, as I went through it, so I said to you earlier that I really wanted to have a baby. And I realized as I went through menopause, which was possibly one of the most empowering things I've ever experienced in my life, for my life. The me I am now and the woman I was who put up with more BS than you could possibly imagine because I wanted a baby. And so as I lost some of the softer hormones, I realized actually how I'd undermined myself. So in terms of sex in the bedroom, my libido is, it's not my libido that has changed. It's my level of willingness to put up with low quality opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, yes. Know what they say.
With all that as well, my only experience, and I'm not a medic in any way, shape, or form, but my experience was that I have had to become much more intent on understanding what my body needs because of I don't know if there are words that I'm not allowed to use here, but
You can use any word you want.
okay. So because of the vaginal dryness and over here, it's known as a senile vagina, which is really kind, right? The language around it is just diabolical. But the vaginal dryness, what I learned was actually to take care, to take much greater purposeful, intentional care about arousing, letting myself be aroused, rather than trying to force myself to do what I used to do, you know, and be satisfied with little foreplay. It meant that I had to become much more, boundaried is the wrong word. I needed to become much more assertive about asking for what I needed. Otherwise, I didn't want sex. Does that answer your question from my part?
Certainly, certainly. You have to push yourself, force yourself.
Yeah, but only if you want to, right? You know, only if you want to. And it takes two, doesn't it? It's not just you wanting it. I'm guessing that your partner needs to, and if you can have that conversation with your partner about saying, listen, I still want it if you want it. I still want it.
I'm running out.
I need you to be more intentional.
Yeah.
Do you still want it, my love? Cynthia?
Yeah, oh, yeah, he's good. He wants it all the time. And I'm running.
And you're running. Well, you know, and for what reason are you running? Do you mind me asking?
I just not, let's not into it. You know. I don't see menopause. I just got into
I'm sorry, you're going in and out, so I didn't quite hear your response.
I just not the feeling is not there.
Okay. So what is it you would prefer to do if it's not running and it's not having sex? What is giving you that care?
I wonder if it's menopause.
Do you still want to touch each other?
Oh yes. Touch. Everyone. Yeah, touch. Touching is nice. Love touching.
Beautiful. I don't know if it's available to you, but I know people, and Maria, you might have something to say about this, but I know people who at this stage in their life, they discover tantric sex.
There?
Tantric sex.
Tantric.
Oh yes. We speak about that a lot on our channel there. Dr. Khan is versed in that area. Very much so. He loves that topic.
I'm not versed in the way that people think I'm versed. But what I was gonna expand on for you, Cynthia, is what Rachel was going. Everybody misunderstands intimacy as just sex, and it isn't. it's a whole spectrum of touching and contact and movement. It's breathing, like what Rachel does. It's generally creating the mood, the foreplay, the build up to it, so that you and your partner feel more comfortable in that space of creating that environment where everybody is happy with what is coming on. So I would say, Cynthia, if you're going through this where you feel like you have to run from it, back it up. First start with a conversation, or start with something even simpler. Sit, knees touching, and looking at each other, and just breathe together. So there's a psychological principle that speakers use when they get on stages of how to get their audience to connect with them. And it's movement. So like what I do is when I get up on stages, I get everybody in the room to stand up and stretch with me. But I don't get them to raise their hand above their head and just hold it there. I get them to move in a direction with me and move in the other direction with me. But the thing is, if I'm moving in the opposite direction, that loses its purpose. I completely lose the audience in that one. So I now have to pay attention to the audience and move. When I say move left, I have to move right. But that connected movement within the audience creates a level of camaraderie that leads the entire audience now engaging with what you want to say. The same thing happens between partners. If you start breathing and synchronizing your breathing together, you realize you become synchronized. Your heart rates start to connect with each other. Your breathing connects. And because it's just light touching, you can leave it there. You don't have to go much further. That first evening, that's all you do. Right? And then the next evening, you hold hands. The next evening, you do a shoulder massage. And you work your way up to it until you get to a comfortable place where you feel engaged. And I know Maria has spoken this topic before. Lubrication is a big, big part of it. What lubrication are you going to use? Because yes, as you said, there's vaginal dryness. You have to lubricate, otherwise it's just going to be painful. It's just going to be very uncomfortable for you. And honestly, I think most guys would agree that it becomes uncomfortable for them too, especially when they see you're not comfortable. It's not because we're massively uncomfortable. We're seeing your reactions and going, oh my God, am I doing something wrong? And we're in the relationships with you. So we want to support you. We want to encourage you. And if we're seeing you're in pain, we're going to back off and we're going to feel like, okay, what am I doing wrong? And it's nothing to do with us. We just don't like to see you in that position of discomfort. And so those are all things you can try. I mean, on the YouTube channel we have a whole episode on increasing intimacy. We talk about different aspects of it. So you can always go back and watch that, and then try using some of the techniques that we suggest there.
May I suggest two more?
Yes, yeah. Rachel, go ahead.
One of the things that I've done with a couple of couples as well is literally people forget how, and you do it with babies, you mesh with a newborn baby to create a bond, and it produces oxytocin, which is the bonding love hormone. It's also the privacy hormone. In my experience, and I'm happy to be contradicted by the doctors in the room, but if you hold without wavering, and you might laugh, but still hold eye contact for 3 minutes, that is how long it will take probably for your breathing to synchronize and become entrained with one another. If at that stage you then, and it's an exquisite experience, if you're willing to hang in there and do it, you don't touch each other. You stay half an inch off the skin, but you sketch the body of your partner without touching, holding eye contact. Does that make sense? So eyes are open and you're literally touching the skin, but not touching the skin, with like half an inch or centimeter gap between. Open mouth breathing if you can. I mean, I don't mean that. I just mean a relaxed mouth so that your mouth is open. And it's a deeply intimate experience to do that, to get you in the mood.
So Cynthia, does that answer our questions? Maria, go ahead.
Oh yes, it certainly did. It certainly did. Thank you.
My pleasure. Good luck, my love.
I would like to interject here to the importance of being. I am very much the romantic type, right? And I think after a few years of marriage, a lot of men, how to put it, they don't see the importance of it, you know. And as you grow older together, a lot of women, particularly as they're going through menopause, they feel very much on not I would not say neglected, but they feel like they, because you're going through a lot of these changes, they're not feeling as beautiful, sensual, sexy as you were when you were younger. And a lot of men do not see how important it is to keep that romance going. That is one of the things that would, to me, would keep that libido going. Beside all the changes you're going through, the dryness and all of that, keeping a romance alive is very important for a woman because it makes her feel wanted. It makes her feel, she gets that feeling of that love, that warmth, So I think that we need to get the men in the picture more, let them understand the importance of a woman feeling that way in order to rekindle that fire within the relationship. I think that is quite important.
I 100% agree with you on that, but I have a tiny, tiny caveat to that. May I share?
Sure.
What are you doing to romance yourself? What are you doing to make yourself feel beautiful, to make yourself feel sexy, to make yourself want, if you're not romancing yourself, and I mean that in every single way, because by the time we've reached menopause, and I can't speak for every woman out here, but I speak for a lot of women I've experienced who forget themselves that they are woman. They become careless about, and things like, I know women who will literally buy matching underwear just for the sake of knowing they are putting matching underwear on for themselves, and it's really high quality for themselves. It might be the only luxury they allow themselves, but they make sure that every day they clothe their intimate parts with something that makes them feel sexy. Right. And if you are not allowing yourself to feel sexy about yourself, to feel beautiful about yourself, to romance yourself, and we're waiting for the man to do it for us, then I think we're missing a trick there, because we magnetize what we manifest, right? If we get more of what we give out. So if we are giving that we believe we are still sexy, that we still find the intimacy in ourselves, then it's going to be easier for the guy, your partner, to go, my experience of the men, and I'm not a man, and Dr. Z, you might be able to do this, but when a man sees his partner taking herself sexily, taking herself seriously in terms of her womanhood, he wants that, and is prepared to do more romantic things, to listen more. But if a woman's shutting her own sexuality down because of her age, that's part of the fixed mindset stuff, then you just become strangers that pass in the night. It's what's the word? The allure. Make yourself alluring to yourself. Sorry.
Right. Cynthia, you gave us a very loaded question there, and I love the discussion. Almost every time this comes up in this community, this gets very deep. So we're running down into the last 6 minutes. We have time enough for one more question from our community of ladies who are on the call right now, or whoever is on here. Anybody else have a question?
Yes.
Let's.
Right. Good night. I don't know which one of the medical personnels will be able to answer this, but do you think that as a woman age, like let's say from menopause going forward, do you think that her organs will become shrinked, or is it for a fact that with every woman they will have dryness, or is it that it could be the both situations? Again, the shrinking of the organs, meaning, for example, the entrance of the vagina. Do you think that will become smaller, or do you think because of dryness a woman would feel as though, it has become smaller, it could become painful because of the dryness? And I am totally in agreement with Rachel's suggestion to women. So most women too, they believe that when they reach a certain age, they are very old, and we have to do old things. We don't have to do old. We have to do things that are old, but we don't have to do old things. And when I say things that are old, things that we used to do before: dress nice, look good, be attractive for yourself. Start with yourself first. I'm right on air and I'm listening. Thank you.
Oh, bless you, darling. Thank you.
And to answer the question in terms of your vagina, you say organs. Well, let's talk. We're thinking about the sexual organ, right? We're thinking about the vagina,
That's
right?
right.
And so if you're not using it, right? They say when you don't use it, you lose it. So if you're not as using it as you used to, obviously after a while it would actually become more difficult when you're having sex, particularly if they're having, as this age group, a decrease in the secretions due to the lack of estrogen and progesterone, which is they help produce these secretions. And so yes, it would really and truly, it would become smaller because you're not using it. And in many cases, when I do a pap smear for women in their post-menopausal stage in life, the cervical os has become stenosed. Stenosed meaning that it's closed off because you're not seeing your monthlies again. The os itself closes up because there's no baby coming there, no period coming, so it actually closes. And so yes, it does. It does. And then another thing that happens, yeah, the lining to the vagina becomes very, very thin. So that is one of the reasons why sex has become so painful. It become thin, and you have very minimal secretions. But yes, so that could cause shrinkage in the vaginal area and contribute to the discomfort during the sexual interplay, if the intercourse, as it were. So yes, that could happen.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Liz, for that question. So
Welcome.
Dr. Z is frozen. If it ever freezes on me, it's never a good looking shot. But look, how dashing does he look on that freeze?
Look good.
I think he might have him blushing there. He might be blushing there.
Well, he's frozen.
Yes, he is.
Z is back now. Can't hear you.
sorry, everyone. I think my internet dropped.
Oh, yes, it did.
So backwards, we're coming on to the last 2 minutes of our session. So let's close off with, I'm going to ask Rachel to give us a little bit of an idea of one of her breathing techniques that she uses. And then we'll close off with that. And then hopefully we'll see you. We're coming on to December. So we're gonna shut down the Healthy Reset for a couple of weeks during December, and we'll start back in January. I think we'll do one more session next week, and then we'll close off for the Christmas season. So I'm gonna open the floor to Michelle and close us off with a nice little breathing exercise, and then we'll say good night to everyone and see you next week.
Okay, it's a very calming, balancing breathing exercise. It might take a little bit longer than a minute to do. So first of all, just relax your tummy muscles. Imagine the point where your bottom rib comes up, your bottom ribs come up and meet in the center. Just release any tension there. And release your bottom muscles so that you can begin to breathe down there. So breathe down and out, if that makes sense. So you can actually feel your hands spreading. So take a nice deep breath in and feel your hands on your belly moving away because your belly is moving out. So your shoulders shouldn't necessarily move because it's down in your belly. So as you're doing that, with a relaxed jaw, you can breathe in through your mouth and out through your mouth. You can do it through your nose as well. But take your hand, so take your non-dominant hand, take your dominant finger, forefinger. Place it at the bottom of your wrist. As you breathe in, you draw the tip of your forefinger along the side of your thumb to the top. So you breathe all the way in. And you breathe all the way out, down on the inside. Really feel the web and the skin. Breathing all the way in. Breathe all the way out. Fully relaxing every cell of your body. Breathing in. Breathing out. Relaxing your jaw, relaxing your lungs, your shoulders. Breathing in. Be aware of what you're feeling, be aware of the forefinger feeling each finger, be aware of the finger feeling the forefinger. And out. All the way down. And then you come back the other way, breathing in. And breathe out. All the way down. And then breathe in. And out. And in. Breathe in. I'm going a little faster than I would ordinarily recommend. And out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now, I would recommend you do that at least 3 times, and then you swap hands and see how different it feels with the other hand. So all the way up. And again, make sure you feel your forefinger feeling your fingers, and you feel your fingers feel your forefinger. It feels very different when it's your non-dominant hand. Remember to breathe as you're doing it. And in. Now, if you're in traffic at traffic lights or something like that, or you're in a hectic space around people, especially around the holidays, it can be really very, very challenging. Always do both sides go. So you go one way, you come back the other. You can use that wherever you are. I can guarantee you, if you do it 3 times, it's mindful breathing, you're trying to get into your diaphragm, it will change your state. So if the family are arguing, go into the toilet, lock yourself in there for a few minutes and do that. You will come out a new woman or a new man, I promise you, because it will really balance you, reduce your heart rate. It takes you into a mindful state change, and the breathing will keep years off you, I promise.
Thank you, Rachel. That was a wonderful ending. So I'm going to say, wish everybody good night, and I will see you next week on another episode of the Healthy Reset.